I don't know if you've seen, but this crazy story about America Fest event, Turning Point USA fans have been complaining that they're seeing this pose for selfies in front of a display tied to Charlie Kirk's killing. There's mixed feelings because some people are clearly doing it, but people are complaining because rightfully so. It's sick. He was killed 3 months ago. What is going on with this country that they think that they can make a show of a very brutal and gruesome death? It's disgusting. So, Phoenix, Arizona, Turning Point USA's annual conference in Phoenix has ignited widespread criticism online after attendees were seen posing for selfies at a display recreating the tent where conservative activist Charlie Kirk was killed in September. The installation, intended as a tribute, has instead drawn condemnation, including from prominent MAGA-aligned voices. The backlash unfolded after footage from the event began circulating on social media during the conference, just 3 months after Kirk's death. You can see from behind me, this is a recreation of the tent where Charlie Kirk lost his life in Utah Valley University in September, and people are taking selfies with it. You can see all around people are saying, like, "For Charlie." They're wearing replicas of the shirt that Charlie Kirk was wearing when he was killed. Images showed conference goers posing beneath the tent-like structure, some wearing shirts meant to resemble what Kirk was wearing at the time of the shooting. What appeared to be intended as a memorial quickly became a flashpoint. MAGA supporters denounce America First display as disturbing and inappropriate. Criticism did not come solely from political opponents. Several MAGA-aligned commentators expressed discomfort and outrage, calling the installation unsettling and exploitative. It's gross. Criticism underscored a rare moment of public disagreement with conservative circles, particularly among those who have long supported Turning Point USA and its leadership. So questions are raised about grief, symbolism, and political messaging. Some critics went further, questioning whether the display blurred the line between memorial and political messaging. Pro-Trump account Project Constitution described the installation as sick beyond words, adding, "This isn't healing. This is straight up psyop tactics. Reenact the trauma to lock in the narrative, tug heartstrings, and milk emotions for control and donations." They concluded by asserting, "Real America First patriots see through the grift." Leadership changes at Turning Point USA after Kirk's death. Charlie Kirk, the founder of longtime face of Turning Point USA, was shot and killed in September while appearing at Utah Valley University. His death sent shockwaves through conservative political circles and prompted an outpouring of tributes nationwide. Since his passing, Kirk's wife, Erica Kirk, has assumed leadership at Turning Point USA, steering the organization through its first major conference without its founder. The Phoenix event marked a significant moment for the group as it sought to honor Kirk's legacy while continuing its political mission. So Erica Kirk is accused of exploiting husband's death as TPUSA recreates Charlie Kirk's shooting for photo op. Critics accuse Erica Kirk of exploiting tragedy as outrage spreads, even among MAGA supporters. As Turning Point USA's America Fest thundered on in Phoenix, outrage erupted over claims that the organization had crossed a disturbing line. Critics accused the group and its new leader, Erica Kirk, of exploiting the murder of her husband, Charlie Kirk, by recreating the scene of his death as a backdrop for conference photo opportunities. Images of the display quickly spread online, triggering a fierce backlash and prompting even loyal MAGA supporters to condemn it as morbid, unsettling, and deeply inappropriate. What was meant to be a show of strength instead unleashed a wave of anger, with critics accusing the organization of turning personal tragedy into political theater. America Fest under new leadership. By the time America Fest reached its midpoint, cracks were already showing within the conservative movement. Erica Kirk, who assumed leadership of Turning Point USA, followed her husband's assassination in September, attempted to strike a breezy note as tensions bubbled over. "Say what you want about AmFest, but it's definitely not boring," she told attendees, likening the event to an awkward family gathering where simmering disputes refused to stay hidden. Behind the scenes, however, the mood was far darker. Senior conservative figures were seen turning on one another, trading barbs and grievances instead of uniting against the political rivals. Observers say the bitter infighting reflects deeper fractures within the Republican coalition and raises uncomfortable questions about the direction of Turning Point USA under its new leadership. For many inside the conference halls, America Fest felt less like a political rally and more like a raw power struggle over influence, control, and the future identity of the movement. Replica display sparks outrage. The backlash intensified after reports emerged of a photo op feature that recreated the tent where Charlie Kirk was shot and killed at Utah Valley University. According to Yahoo, attendees were lining up to take selfies at the replica, some wearing copies of the shirt Kirk wore when he died. The display was framed by signs and slogans referencing Charlie Kirk, turning a fatal shooting into a focal point for convention imagery. Critics said the installation crossed a line between remembrance and spectacle. Authorities have charged 22-year-old Tyler Robinson with aggravated murder in connection with the killing, a case that remains deeply painful for the supporters. So the criticism has increasingly focused on Kirk herself. Since taking the helm of the Turning Point USA, she has faced scrutiny over how her husband's death is being used within the organization. Detractors accuse her of allowing grief to be turned into branding, while supporters argue that she is navigating an impossible situation under intense pressure. Turning Point USA has publicly addressed the backlash in detail, and Erica has not responded directly to the accusations. Controversy has nonetheless overshadowed much of America Fest, shifting focus away from the speeches and policy toward questioning and taste and ethics and leadership. So Brenda Factor says, "I feel so stupid that my first thought when I heard Charlie was dead was compassion for this poor woman with 2 young children. What a waste. Do they even have children, or were those also props? It appears Erica is celebrating his death. What a effing scam." Yeah, this proved to me that she does not care about him at all, and this has all been for profit. Call me crazy, but wouldn't your husband's assassination be the most traumatic thing to happen to you and your family, yet you recreated it for a photo op? Insane that anyone would do that, I'm sure. Turning Point USA recreated the moment Charlie Kirk was executed, the convention. Anyone else find this strange? Strange is a weird word. Sick beyond words, says Project Constitution. TPUSA turns Charlie Kirk's assassination tent into AmFest photo op. Trash can included for extra disrespect. So there's a trash can, I guess, in there. AmFest 2025 Turning Point USA set up a full replica of Charlie's Prove Me Wrong debate tent, the very one he was sitting under when he was shot, I'm sure. Anyone else find this disturbing? Michael Flynn Jr. So, Erin Elizabeth, the health nut, I guess. "I wanted to show you all the TPUSA recreation of the tent where Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I watched people laugh and take selfies, and a few cried. It made me sad and a little disturbed. What do you think?" Diligent Denizen. As if they couldn't get any more demonic, TPUSA recreated the Charlie Kirk assassination booth at AmFest, where visitors can take photo ops in a murder scene replica. There's something very sick, morbid, and dark going on at that organization. Evil people, bro. This is a disturbing and satanic, macabre display and creating idols by TPUSA. Shadow of Ezra. Turning Point USA has recreated the tent. Attendees are now posing for photos and selfies. Don't look happy to see this behavior from a widow. I'm not saying that I was a Kirk supporter. I think that he was a bigot and that he had a lot of gotcha moments against children that he was saying he was debating. He didn't allow for any prep on their part, where he had lots of prep. He didn't argue directly, point to point. There were a lot of whataboutisms and spinning involved, which is harder for a child or young adult to maneuver, navigate. So I'm not a fan, but the end of a life is always sad. He was young, he had family, and so it's gross that there were people celebrating that. And it's equally gross that his own group and his own wife is using it for whatever reason. It doesn't matter how they spin the use of it, it's gross. So I want to talk just a little bit about this new law, HR 4371, which allows for ICE agents to strip search children 12 and up and prolong detainment. So it passed in the House, 225 to 201, 218 Republicans to 7 Democrats. The 7 Democrats that voted yes are Cuellar, Davis from North Carolina, Gonzalez from Texas, Gillen from New York, Golden from Maine, Gray from California, and Perez from Washington. So it's called the Kayla Hamilton Act. A 20-year-old was essayed by an undocumented Salvadorian, and that's horrible. And it's also not a representation of all Salvadorians, so we're clear. So this law allows for DHS to look for tattoos, markings on a child's skin, so they can look at their body in detail, and DHS can declare a child a flight risk. So the wording or the persuasion in the law to which is probably why some Democrats voted for it. It says it strengthens existing laws concerning the protection of children from trafficking. So they're trying to say that they can check out the child because the child might have markings or something that is connected to child trafficking. And however, for determining whether or not they are a flight risk or an issue otherwise, so they are going to look at their body and tattoos, I guess, to see if they're a danger to themselves, danger to the community, or a flight risk. So the other thing it mandates is that children will be detained if they have gang tattoos or gang history. So it allows them to place them in a secure facility. So children 12 and up, it's a very young child. I have a daughter that's 13, and I would lose my mind if somebody touched her. Even if they're just looking for something specific, I don't care. And this allows them to do this without a parent present. I mean, these are undocumented people, so MAGA will probably see it as like the parents caused it, don't blame law enforcement. I will blame law enforcement. I will blame politicians, law enforcement, anybody involved in the availability to grope a child. I'm just going to go over some just random stories that don't really have anything to do with each other. One is about about Kristi Noem trying to demolish 13 buildings in DC that are on the DHS property. I'm going to go over the FBI interview that is off the rails about Epstein house party turn Trump house party. I guess the guests left Epstein's and went over to Trump's. I'm going to talk about how the Social Security Administration is in shambles. I'm going to talk about how Susie Wiles, who is a lobbyist for the Ballard Partners and chief of staff, outed cabinet members, dirty laundry. And what's this about? USAID, and how it wasn't meant to be demolished or dismantled. I'm going to go over Marjorie Taylor Greene and how she said that he yelled at her when she asked about the victims, the Epstein victims, going to the White House to talk to him, and him saying that they hadn't earned the honor or something. And it's just crazy because it's not about his friends, it's about him. He is his friends. He was around them. They were friends. He did the same things as they did. I don't understand why he can talk about how people knew each other and, the notorious island and all the dirty stuff that was going on with Epstein, but somehow that's not Trump too. So let's go through it. The Trump admin rushes to demolish 13 more historic DC buildings as preservations fight back. So not long after the demolition of the historic East Wing of the White House, the Trump administration is now looking to expedite the demolition of more than a dozen historic buildings in Washington, D.C. Secretary Kristi Noem is seeking emergency approval to demolish 13 historic buildings at the historic federal campus, St. Elizabeth's, established by Congress in 1855. So apparently it was a hospital. In a memo, Noem said that the buildings constituted a present risk to life and property, that their vacancy could be used by individuals seeking to cause harm to personnel. So they are great big pussies. That's what they are. An empty building they're afraid of. An empty building. And they want to demolish history over a building being empty and being a possible threat. I mean, they have detained people and called them potential terrorists and said they need to be kicked out, detained for long periods of time because of potential terrorism. I mean, what happened to not charging people, not saying things are crime, labeling things before they've even happened? DHS filed an emergency notification with the General Services Administration to expedite the building's demolition, giving preservationist organizations just 3 days to respond to the inquiry. If the space within these vacant buildings is accessible, then DHS has failed to effectively secure them. So, rightfully so, the GSA and National Trust for Historic Preservation and the DC Preservation League are saying that if Kristi Noem is afraid of a building, she needs to guard, protect, empty that building. And they are saying a unilateral declaration bypasses the procedural safeguards designed to ensure stability, legitimacy, and fairness, which is absolutely correct. There should never be one person or a handful of people who are like-minded and want the same things 100% of the time making all of these decisions. Okay, so this story is also crazy. So there's a report in this release the Monday before the 23rd. So how there was a release on Friday and then there was a release again on Monday. This is right after that second release and by the DOJ of the Epstein files. And so in this release, in this batch, there was a document of a witness, someone who was telling the story. And I'm just going to read through it. One of the documents briefly disclosed by the Department of Justice contains an FBI tip related to a party allegedly hosted more than 2 decades ago by the president and featured prostitutes. So a female told the FBI in October 2020 that she had information about a Jeffrey Epstein party in 2000 that was included in a new batch of files posted online Monday night, but then removed several hours later. Why would they remove it? They're only supposed to remove stuff about victims. So she, as in the informant, met Lisa Villeneuve at a hospital where they were roommates in 2000. So after she and this woman, Villeneuve, left the hospital, they remained friends. Later that year, in 2000, around Christmas time, Villeneuve invited the tipster to a party on Palm Beach Island, Florida. The tipster believes the house belonged to Epstein. Before the party, Villeneuve took the tipster to meet Bobby Cox. FBI summary continues. Based on the tip, Cox was a young man and introduced himself as a model scout. Villeneuve laughed in response to Cox's introduction and said, "No, you're a pimp." Villeneuve, Cox, and the tipster then went to the party. She would go inside to speak with the hostess, which the tipster believes was Ghislaine Maxwell. Villeneuve took the tipster to meet a man named Kurt Schmidt, who is currently the CEO of Blue Buffalo. So then, when Villeneuve approached Schmidt, he asked Villeneuve if the tipster was cool. What's cool mean? What cool for what? Someone told the party that Donald Trump had invited them all to the party at Mar-a-Lago. So they were moving the party from Epstein's to now Mar-a-Lago, from Epstein's house now to Trump's house. So even 20 years ago, these men are in their 50s and they're house party bouncing. The tipster told Villeneuve she wanted to go, but it was for prostitutes. So, and then of course the DOJ has prefaced the release of these documents because they could not redact them in full. They could not take out everything that had full redactions or redacted people or whatever in them. So they have to just say that, oh, don't believe your lying eyes. Okay, so now I'm going to go over the Social Security and what's going on with it, because as you know, or maybe don't, the history there is that when Musk first was brought in for DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, they were tasked with a reduction in force, and in that they just blanket started firing people, and they went after people that had just been hired and trained. They went after people that had maybe seniority and may have pushed back. They knew what they were doing. So since that takeover, Social Security Administration has experienced significant deterioration following cuts to the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. Caseload backlogs have swelled to over 6 million. So a case is a person. So over 6 million people have filed for disability or for retirement and are being delayed in their care. If they're applying for Medicare, they are not getting health care. If they were applying for financial aid or retirement money that they paid into the system, they're not getting that money. They are being held up. So caseload backlogs have swelled to over 6 million, and applicants now face substantial obstacles in obtaining basic information. So that's the other thing. As efficiencies put in place by DOGE, staffers have left the agency in turmoil as multiple commissioners have come and gone, leading to record backlogs that have delayed basic services to millions of customers. Regional offices abruptly disappeared in a rushed reorganization. New policies to fight fraud were rolled out only to be canceled or changed, prompting confused customers to jam phones and the websites, which crashed repeatedly. Daily operations in some respects became an endless game of whack-a-mole as employees were pulled from one department to another. The report notes that the remaining staff members have been forced to accept reassignment to new duties or face firing, and the training for the new positions has at times been non-existent. Training on the phone system and complicated claims and benefits programs lasted for hours for some reassigned workers when it should have taken 6 months. Customers still can't get basic questions answered or are given inaccurate information. So that's just it. These jobs take months to train for. They take different scenarios, different kinds of cases coming in, and learning on the job, learning how to do the job. And instead, they are just being thrown in with nobody overseeing them. Like, normally you'd have maybe a trainer sit with them while they're doing their work, so that when mistakes come up, it's not the customer, the client, or the whatever is feeling that. It's the person who's training will learn right up there on the spot how to fix it, how not to have done that mistake to begin with. So they're not learning any of that stuff. So then this is, okay, Susie Wiles, again, who is the lobbyist for Ballard Partners. She was interviewed by Vanity Fair, and over a long period of time, months, maybe a year. Anyway, she was interviewed, and she talked about everything under the sun. Trump's personality, the administration, and apparently she gave a lot of details about Musk. Susie Wiles launched pointed criticisms at billionaire Musk. Unusually frank observations during her conversation with author Chris Whipple about Vance, Bondi, Blanche, and Musk. She characterized Musk's behavior as irrational, brought up his drug use, and described being forced to confront him about the Department of Government Efficiency's mass firing campaign. So she was frustrated with him about eviscerating federal agencies and firing employees en masse. I mean, why didn't she stop him? She has Trump's ear. Wiles referenced a Musk post on X defending Stalin, Mao, and Hitler, observing, I think that's when he's microdosing. He's an avowed ketamine user. So she said that on tape and then tried to deny it. So subsequent interview with Times, Wiles initially denied making the drug use abuse statement, claiming that's ridiculous. I wouldn't have said it, and I wouldn't know. And then she was confronted with the tape. So regarding DOJ's dismantling of the U.S. Agency for International Development, Wiles expressed dismay. It was initially a gasp because I think everybody that pays attention to government and has ever paid attention to USAID believes, as I did, that they do good work. So she confronted Musk. You can't just lock people out. Well, she's a liar, so who knows if she actually confronted him, but that's what she's saying anyway. You can't lock people out of their offices. They did. I mean, I don't even believe that they're not still doing that. So then Marjorie Taylor Greene met with the victims of Epstein and at Congress in a closed-door meeting, and afterwards she held a press conference, her and Thomas Massie. And I don't know if Ro Khanna was there, but he's also involved in pushing for the Epstein files released. And so she met with them, she believed them, and she then turned to Trump to consider them in releasing the files and listening to what they want. And I guess apparently there was a blowout argument on the phone, and other people heard that. He yelled at her, and at the end of that, he said, when she said, well, you should bring the victims here. And maybe she was trying to see if maybe he could be convinced to listen to them. And instead, he didn't. So after meeting with some of the Epstein victims in a closed-door oversight meeting, she held a press conference and threatened to identify some of the men who had abused the women. Trump called her to voice his displeasure with the threat. Greene was in her Capitol Hill office, and according to a staff member, everyone in the suite of rooms could hear him yelling at her as she listened to him on speakerphone. And one of the things that he said was, "My friends will get hurt." When she urged Trump to invite some of the Epstein victims to the Oval Office, she says he angrily informed her that they had done nothing to merit the honor. So now it's just meeting him is about being worthy of his presence. He may not be trying to be a king. He sure acts like one sometimes. He's an employee. He's our employee. So it would be the last conversation Greene and Trump would ever have. And I don't like her. I think that she's been horrible to victims of mass shootings in schools, a handful of them in particular, and and a lot of other things, trans rights and just a lot of things. And I also even somewhat question her motives here, because when the whole Matt Gaetz thing happened, she had made a comment that made it sound like she knew of some abuses within Congress, and maybe they were against grown women, and so she didn't think it's the same thing, but she threatened to out them and then didn't. So it was leverage for her and not a moral line. So then this one is just a post, and I don't really know what his agenda is here. I mean, I feel like his agenda is to use the law, the loopholes in the law, to go after people that he doesn't like, and he is a bigot, and he has a history of being a bigot. But this one is odd. This guy, Brendan Diley, he says, we have two options: deport every single third world migrant, illegal alien, and America hating visa holder, or, and then there's the fear factor, always the scare, surrender your nation the way the United Kingdom has. So those are not the only two options. Clearly, we have lived a long time. We are a country of migrants. We started that way. We have continued that way for 250 years. If that scares people, then maybe they need to seek help, because we are all sharing this planet. Where we are on the planet, the value of that is made up. It is not an important part of being human and being a good human. The people who come here make us great. They add to us in a positive way. And by and large, they commit less crimes. By and large, they give more than they get.